If you were asked what Doctor Who episodes have the best opening sequences, which ones would spring to mind? Maybe it's a classic cold open that showcases the monster of the week, usually through the untimely death of an unfortunate side character. Maybe it's an opening that drops us straight into an adventure with the Doctor, showing us a chaotic scenario from the companion's point of view, and illustrating how their relationship with the Doctor has developed. Maybe it's an opening like the one from Remembrance of the Daleks, that sets an ominous tone and indicates the threat that planet Earth will face this week. For me, there aren't many Doctor Who episode openings that can top the adrenaline-fueled first 60 seconds of Into the Dalek, the second episode of Series 8. In the span of just one Earth minute, this opening sequence manages to clearly and concisely convey to the audience basically everything they need to know to start the story. The first shot is of a tiny human ship ambling clumsily through an asteroid field. There's smoke coming from its port side and something is clearly wrong. We then see the ship's panicked pilot, desperately trying to send a distress signal while flying and also tending to her wounded co-pilot, confirming that this ship is hit and has suffered major damage. Then, as the human ship ducks and weaves to avoid incoming fire, the camera pans up to reveal the enemy. A Dalek saucer. The imagery of this minuscule human fighter starkly compared to the titanic hull of the Dalek ship illustrates not only the desperate situation that this pilot has found herself in, but also the state of humanity's battle against the Daleks as a whole. The human ship is called Wasp Delta, a fitting name as we see the human ships are little more than insects compared to the might of the Daleks. The human ship continues to duck and weave, avoiding asteroids and blaster fire from the Dalek ship. Another visual detail that illustrates the power of the Daleks is the fact that the human ship needs to avoid the asteroids, whereas the Dalek ship simply plows right through them, with the asteroids bouncing harmlessly off the saucer. The fact that the pilot simply refers to the Daleks as the enemy illustrates the fact that this is not just an isolated skirmish, it's an engagement that is part of a bigger war against the Daleks, a war that humanity is losing. The Wasp suffers another hit, and the pilot despondently turns to the slumped body of her co-pilot and says, "I'm sorry." Then, it cuts to the bridge of the Dalek ship, and the Dalek commander gives a simple command: exterminate, before the human ship is totally destroyed. One wonders if the Daleks were simply toying with the pilot for this whole time. Notice that the human ship only suffers a direct hit once the commander gives the order to exterminate. As pragmatic as they are, the Daleks are also sadistic, and after landing an initial hit on the human ship, they likely chased it through the field in a game of cat and mouse simply for their own amusement. They fired shots calculated to be close enough to the human fighter to cause her to dodge, but not close enough for a complete kill. It was only after she was caught out and hit again by one of these glancing shots that the commander realised that the prey couldn't run anymore, and only then did it give the command to kill. In many ways, the opening scene of Into the Dalek parallels another fantastic opening scene that works in much the same way, that being the opening scene of Star Wars: A New Hope. In fact, it's very likely that this opening was inspired by Star Wars, as both of these scenes feature a tiny rebel ship being pounded relentlessly by a much larger and better equipped enemy, and are able to visually translate the basics of the conflict in which their respective stories are set to the audience with no dialogue required. Both scenes show us how the good guys are woefully inferior to their enemies in terms of firepower and technology, and both paint a grim picture of a galaxy at total war against a looming, near unstoppable threat. There's a lot to like about Into the Dalek, but the opening sequence in particular is one of its standout features, and is perhaps one of the most visually impressive space battle sequences in Doctor Who's history. We see the immense power of the Daleks and get an idea of how most engagements in the Daleks' war against the rest of the universe tend to go. What do you think of the opening sequence to Into the Dalek? Are there any other Dalek stories with opening scenes that can rival this one? Do you want to see more Dalek space battles in future Doctor Who stories? Let me know in the comments below.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to
Dalek Bumps.